welcome. My name is Bethany. My pronouns are she, her, and this is my little corner of the internet where I talk about my knits and any other bits that I feel like. And it has been a minute since I last filmed. Big thing that happened was I went on vacation and it was wonderful. I'm going to talk about that basically at the end of this video because I'm going to talk about the yarns that well, not just yarns, but the fiber arts related stuff that I got on vacation. So if you want to stick around for that, it's going to be towards the end of the video. First part of this video is going to be a usual kind of update because it's been a while and I have been working on a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of stuff is finished, including spinning. I had briefly shown that I had started spinning at the end of my last posted video, and I have been spinning a lot since then. So I'd love to show off my finished spins as well. Let's get into it. Let's start with finished objects because I have a lot. Okay, so my last video, I was featuring all these sort of Grogu green, Swamp Witch green projects that I was working on, and I have finished nearly all of them. I think all of them. So let's start with my forest green Lavaca. I love this pattern. This is the third one that I have knit, and yeah, it's fantastic. This one is knit on a 4mm needle, so bigger needle and thin yarn because this is lace weight. This is the Manos del Uruguay Marina. I believe it's Marina. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. But I know that the colorway is Arboretum, which explains the gorgeous sort of foresty colors of this. The pattern has you do more of a bell sleeve in it, and I decided to forego that because my last one that I knit, which is a red one, I did a straight sleeve with no increases, and I really like how that fit, so I decided to do that on this one as well. And I pretty much used up, for one thing, I didn't want the sleeves on this to actually be full length, so they're just past the elbow, and so I have a little bit of yarn left over, but not much. This took most of a skein of Marina. I'll get it eventually. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with how this worked up. I was able to wear it just once before it got really hot and we went into a series of heat waves, but I'm excited to have that ready to go with my fall wardrobe because it's going to fit in really, really well. Next up is my Victory Garden kerchief, which is less of a kerchief and definitely shawl sized. Let's see if I can do that. There I am. Yeah, so I used up every single little bit of the main color, which is Stix yarn and fiber in their Marl base, which I'm blanking on right now, but you can find all the details in the description below. And then I basically knit until I could not complete another row, and then I found a green yarn out of my stash. It was from a mini skein, and it coordinated pretty well with the sort of swampy green that's in here, and I just added that in and then decided to do a picot bind off, which took ages, but it was worth it. I think it's really cute. It definitely feels very Gothic Victorian shawl, which I think that's pretty cool. That's a mood and I like it. So I'm looking forward to getting to wear this or layer it for fall, because again, with all that green and purple in there, it's really going to go with the rest of my wardrobe in general, but definitely my fall wardrobe. And then the last green project that I was working on were these gorgeous socks. This was knit out of a sock set from Leo and Roxy, and I call these the Boreal socks because that is the color of this main marled skein, and then it came with the two mini skeins to do, you know, heels, cuffs, and toes if you wanted. And I just decided to do cuffs and toes because I really wanted to make the most of the marled yarn. So I just kept using it and I didn't bother to change color for the heel. Also saves on weaving in ends, which is always good. And this pattern is basically just the Summerly I'm So Basic pattern. I do a little bit of a tweak in terms of like stitch count and whatever, but it's basically that pattern with a little bit of modification as usual. And I'm really pleased with how these turned out. They're so soft after blocking. So I'm really looking forward to when it actually cools down around here and I can put these on my feet. I also finished another pair of socks that I cast on after I finished the boreal socks, and these are very autumnal. These are called Flying Geese, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. And basically, it gives you a very basic sock pattern, not unlike the Summerly I'm So Basic. But the main part of this is the color work chart to do the Flying Geese pattern. And both yarns are from my stash. The brown was a mystery skein that I picked up at a yarn swap, and then the burgundy was just leftover stash. And I think it looks very effective. The pattern only has you do it do the color work chart up here around the ankle, but I decided it would be really cute to put it just before the toe, and I think it's okay. I think actually if I were to knit these again, which I'm tempted to do, I might actually put it here, like closer to like the middle of the foot around the arch rather than closer to the toe. Either that or I just need to work on my color work tension because I feel like it's not as successful here close to the toe as it was up here on the ankle. But I think they're very cute. Great way to use up little bits of scrap for the color work, because you could even do each part of the Flying Geese chart in a different color if you were really trying to use up like tiny little bits, because it took hardly any yarn at all to do that. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with how those turned out. This, as I mentioned, I went on vacation a couple of weeks ago and I had cast this on in hopes of taking it with me. I did not finish it in time, but this is the Secret Summer Crop. I'll correct myself because I never get it right. And this is knit out of Universal Yarns Bamboo Pop Sock. And I believe the colorway was Bayou. I'll link it below. Or correct myself on the screen. So as you can see, it's like a variegated or striping colorway, and I thought that was really cute. But I had knit all the way up to having the sleeves, did it again, straps on this tank top done, and I had knit them too short, so I had to undo them. And I was like, it's okay, I still got time. I can lengthen these and still have it done to take on vacation. I did not, in fact, finish it in time to take on vacation. So I finished the straps when I got back, and I have been wearing it on and off ever since because it is actually a great hot weather knit because of the bamboo and the nylon that's in it. It's pretty light, very stretchy. I also knit a size much larger than I normally would. I believe I knit size 4 in this, which means it fits really nicely around the bust without too much negative ease. It's basically, I would think, either no ease or, you know, like maybe an inch of negative ease. And then the rest of it is like, actually it just skims the body. It doesn't really cling or anything like that, which is nice because I wanted a bit of airflow when I wear it. But I didn't want it to be like falling off of me. So yeah, this has been great. I've actually even like slept in it like pajamas, and like that's pretty nice. Like I'm tempted to get some more of this yarn because the yardage on one ball of the bamboo pop sock is great. It's over 400 yards. So, and I had some left over. So the, depending on your size, it could be a one skein project depending on how much ease you want in the garment. But yeah, it only takes one skein, so I'm or one ball. So I'm very tempted to get at least like another, but like a solid color, and that way I've got it as an option to either wear as a regular tank top or wear as loungewear, sleepwear. So comfy. Okay, let's get on to the knits I took on vacation. I was, what would we call it? It's not ambitious. I was foolish. Was I foolish? I don't know. So I only took one project on vacation. To be fair, I was fully planning to pick up yarn and fiber while I was away. And we were going to be gone long enough. We were on this vacation long enough that I was like, oh, I might start another project with yarn that I buy on vacation. So I'm not going to take like 3-4 projects with me and like, and then buy stuff. Right? I thought that was like absolutely wild. Anyway, the point is a ball of I had a ball of Estelle Yarns 50 cotton Luxe. And I decided to cast on a simple thing, which was great. Didn't need the pattern, even though I had it in my phone. And then what was really cool was if maybe I'll pop a picture up of like what a ball of this looks like. So I thought the whole thing was going to be like these lovely purples and pinks. And so I'm knitting along and then, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. And then bam, in the middle, we get white and orange. And then we're into yellow. And really, the name of the colorway should have been a hint because it was called Sunset. But yeah, I fully thought that I was in for like this kind of thing and the whole way around, but no. And this is very difficult to show in frame, so I'll pop a picture up on the screen somewhere to show you what the whole thing looks like. So this was good. In my wisdom, what I did was I had been working on the increase section of this scarf, and I decided to sort of help myself out, that I would try to get to the midpoint of the scarf before we caught our flight out to Nova Scotia, which is where we were for our vacation. Because I'm like, oh, because then I'm just working decreases the whole time and it'll feel very productive. Well, of course, my husband and I, being who we are, we were at the airport really early, got through security and everything really quite quickly. And so we were sitting for like 2 hours, right? And what else are you going to do waiting at your gate than knit? So I got a lot of knitting done waiting in the gate. I hardly knit at all on the plane. I'm not a super great flyer. And as it turned out, I had been feeling very unwell on the days leading up to when we were flying out. So I was kind of still recovering from that. I was really tired. And so all that being said, I was basically almost done this. Like I was honing in on the last few decrease rows on this the day after we landed in Nova Scotia, and we were driving up to Sydney Cape Breton. And I was like, oh no, we must find a yarn shop because otherwise I don't have knitting to work on, and that would be an absolute tragedy. So we did. Blessed be, and like the universe must have been looking out for me because the first day we drove into Sydney from Halifax. We stopped at a pub for lunch because we were starving, and I was like, I know that there's a yarn shop downtown somewhere, and it was Tracy's Unrolling Yarn Shop. I'll explain all of that like towards the end of the video when I talk about the vacation proper. But I'm like, oh, I wonder where the yarn shop is, like from where we are, because I didn't have a good concept of like how big is downtown Sydney, how far away are we. So I pull it up on my phone. It was a 2-minute walk away, friends. 2 minutes. We went outside the pub. I looked down the street and I could see the sign for the yarn shop from where we were. I was like, we're going, we're going, we're going. And I did some shopping there, but the only thing I will show you is the socks that I knit on vacation. So this, they look so cool. They look way greener on camera than they do in real life. There's definitely much more brown and blue in here, but I love how this worked out. So this is Fleece Artist Cabin Sock. Yes, cabin sock, and the colorway is the one of the colors from the national parks line that Fleece Artist does. And this was, I was tempted to get the Cape Breton one, but it was very blues and greens, and I wanted something that had a little bit more color in it, and was also very loud. And I was like, no, I want something earthier, because I was still sort of in the Swamp Witch green mode. So this is the Fundy colorway, and I think it's fantastic. We did not go to Fundy National Park, uh, but it was very cool, and it was very fun to cast this on. Literally, of course, foolish me. I was like, yeah, it's no problem. Grab these skeins, whatever. Get back to the hotel, and forgetting that I'm on vacation and I don't have access to my Swift and Ball winder, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to hand wind this. Bless my husband, he was like, I'm ready. I'll hold the skein for you and we can hand wind it. And I'm like, that's gonna take so long. So instead, I decided to forego his very generous offer and went back to the yarn shop the next day when they opened and said, I was a silly Billy. Could you please wind this for me? And they were very happy to do so. So then I cast on these socks, which with some lovely texture in it. These are the Craggy Shore socks on Ravelry. And cool pattern. But the stitch counts were different from what I normally do. So I was struggling to decide which, and a different needle size was recommended than what I normally use. And what I had brought with me was my usual 2.25 millimeter needles. So I decided to cast on for the 60 stitch sock, but what I did instead was I did cast on my usual 64 stitches up here for the cuff, and I did 1x1 rib with 64 stitches, and then I took a row and I decreased down to 60, and then started the texture pattern, because the texture pattern really didn't work with 64 stitches, which is why the stitch counts were different. Once these were blocked, it was fine. But I was actually very nervous while knitting these that they were going to be too small. And I was like, you know what? I decided that if they were too small for me, that would be fine. I use these antique blockers as decor on my wall. And I do actually change up what socks live on these. I'll say quarterly, but really it's kind of seasonally. So like I had a really loud, bright pair on there for summer, and then I usually put up something like very fall or Halloween for the rest of fall, and then I have a striped pair of Christmas socks that I don't wear actively because they're a little itchy, so I put them on the blockers. Anyway, all that being said, I was like, well, if these don't fit me, I'll just put them on the decor blockers, and I can put them up, or I can put at least one of them up, and it can be like souvenir yarn. We can look at it, right? Beautiful. Luckily, after blocking, they do in fact fit me. So at least that's an option, and that's fantastic. So these I knit on vacation, and what was hilarious was I was like, I wasn't really trying to start and finish them over our vacation, but it ended up working out. I finished the second sock the day after we got home. So like that felt very satisfying that the majority of this pair had been knit on vacation. yeah, it was really, really fun, and it was really fun to see like these colors reflected in the landscape that we were driving through almost every day. So that was fantastic. So that was my major vacation knit. Still in finished objects, but we're going to talk about spinning, and then we'll move on to whips, and then we'll talk about what I got on vacation. So, end of my last podcast, I showed you that I had been spinning on a drop spindle because I had just learned a few weeks ago how to spin. And this is the result of my first ever spin. The fiber is from Frosted Stitch, as you can see here. So I kept the tag with it, and I sort of just wrote my info about the spin on the other side, which I'm like, that is brilliant. If my fiber comes with a card, I'm just going to keep that with it so that I know who the maker was, and my own information can be just written on the back. So very lumpy bumpy art yarn. This was wonderful to learn on. This was 100% Rambouillet. And because I was not good at sort of balancing my skeins when plying, I ended up with a big chunky boy, a sort of medium one, and then a tiny mini skein because I had a little bit left over. I'm very tempted to take this mini skein and like hang it up behind me as part of the podcast to sort of just remind me of where I started. But it's interesting. You can even see how much more consistent I got from like learning to spin and practicing to when I sort of cut that off and put that onto a temporary bobbin, and then spun the rest of the fiber. It's interesting how quickly the consistency got better, and how I started to spin a lot thinner in some places. This ended up, when I did wraps per inch, this ended up being anywhere from a bulky to an Aran, not surprising. So yeah, so that was fantastic. I was very pleased with the amount of yardage that I got out of this, which was a total of 124 and a half yards ish. So yeah, that was fantastic. And then I immediately moved on to a second spin, again with frosted fiber from the Frosted Stitch, and I just fell in love with this bluey, purple, mauve, gray yarn. And it was very interesting to spin this lower contrast fiber because it was fantastic for me to use this as my first spin because I could really see, particularly when I was plying, like literally what I was doing, right? Because the color changes and they're so vibrant. So it was interesting to sort of like hone in, and you can see here how much thinner I spun even on my second spin. This ended up being closer to a sport weight when I finished, and I ended up with approximately 166 yards for this. Also, don't ask me what I'm doing with my hand spun. Not yet. Not yet. Some of it, I feel a bit precious about it at the moment. Yeah, so I was pleased with that. And then I decided, because last summer I had bought a spindle and some merino fiber from a vendor at Berry Fiber Spirit with every intention of learning how to spin, and then did not do that until the following, like this summer, a whole year later. But I had bought some merino fiber. I'm like, I'm going to try the merino fiber. I haven't purchased any other fiber just yet, so I'm going to try this merino. Friends, I don't like spinning merino. People are right when they say merino is not the one to start with because it's so slippery. Yes to all of that. I don't want to say we hates it, but I did not enjoy this spin in the same way, which is why it's so small. It's so tiny. That being said, I really like, here, put it here. I really like how this turned out. I love how plying with black looks. So in the little baggie that I got with the spindle, there was this fuchsia merino fiber and some black merino fiber. And the chair that I spin in is now covered in Merino bits. So I have to take the lint roller to it to clean up my chair. So I did not enjoy drafting 100% Merino. That being said, I'm not gonna like shun Merino fiber forever, but I do think it would have to be blended. I think because this was 100% Merino, I was just like, no, struggle. And to be fair, my third spin ever, right? So I have to keep that in perspective as well. But it's just I did not enjoy it. Which is why I was like, cut and run. So yeah, so this ended up being 42 yards, and is basically a DK weight spin. So I'm remaining pretty consistent in terms of the weight of yarn that I am ending up when I ply, which means I'm probably spinning my singles close to a fingering weight. That's debatable, but yeah. So there's this. Yeah, that this boy needs to rest for a little bit before I can do anything with it. Wonder what I'm gonna do with just 42 yards. Maybe a coaster, right? Or like a pot holder or something. Because I do want it to be useful, right? Like I'm not just gonna keep it in my stash forever. Although it's a good reminder of like, you don't like 100% merino fiber. Spin with something else, right? That is it for my finished objects. So much. I genuinely can't believe how much I finished while practicing spinning, right? Like balancing the two hobbies. I'm so proud of myself that that is what I accomplished. Let's move on to whips. Of course, I can't not have a pair of socks on the needles. So this is what I'm calling my, just very careful not to get it tangled. These are what I'm calling my double stripe socks. And this is absolutely inspired by the Pinterest feeding me images of socks being knit with two either self-striping or two variegated yarns, where you stripe the two yarns together, either doing 2 or 3 or even 1. 1 would be maddeningly slow to do, but you do like 2 rows of one color and then 2 rows of the other, 2 rows of one. Anyway, so I already had this top one I already had in my stash, and I picked up this one from my local yarn store, just so that there would be contrast. They are both Estelle Evolution sock. I believe that's the name. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself on the screen. And I just liked that there was, there were colors in common, but enough contrast that it would stripe nicely. And this is what I'm ending up with. So I'm doing 2 row stripes throughout, and I love how rainbowy it is. Yeah, and I've just turned the heel on the first sock, so now I'm just, and I've also finished my gusset decreases, so now I'm just on the foot. I split the 2 big balls in half, basically, so that I wouldn't get so tangled up, because it really felt very tangly before I split the balls. So yeah, I really like this. I really like this technique of doing the 2 or 3 row stripe, and it's already got me thinking about how to use up mini skeins with a full skein. Get ready for more of this in future, for sure. I'm really enjoying that. I also needed, because I hadn't cast on the socks yet, I needed another sort of mindless knit, TV knit. So I have cast on a sock head hat, and this is using Yarnalia Skylark in the color Midnight Teal. And I'm knitting it on a 2.75 needle, so it's going to take forever, but I actually really like how this yarn is slightly rustic, and it's like, it feels very effective on the 2x2 rib. So that's going to be going forever and ever and ever. because I'm really going to try to use up the whole ball. That way, when the hat is done, it can be a double or even triple fold brim. I might not keep it because this is rustic enough that I feel like it would be too itchy on my ears or on my forehead, but we will see when it is blocked. Last but not least, I have cast on a cardigan for the fall. Once again, the algorithm or the internet gave me what I needed, you know. So the Mizzle and Mist cardigan has just come out, and I decided to cast it on in this lovely, lovely walnut color from Full Moon Fibres. The pattern is written for sport rate, but I am using fingering. I did get gauge though, and I do like the fabric that I'm getting for this. This is the back panel, and it's got this really gorgeous. I forget what she calls it in the pattern, but there's this ribbing pattern here that is just delicious. And basically the whole cardigan is either this rib pattern or garter stitch. And I was like, very textury, very squishy. So I'm excited. I'm knitting size 2, which has a 48.5, I think. I'll correct myself. Bust. And it's an open cardigan, not buttoned. And I did want there to be positive ease for this, and hopefully the 3 skeins of yarn that I have will be enough. I did do some rough calculations based on my gauge, which was slightly off. Story of my life. But I did swatch. You'll be proud of me. I did swatch. But yeah, so hopefully I'll have enough. Full Moon Fibres does regularly stock walnut, so I'm hoping that if I do need a 4th skein, it will match pretty nicely. I find that their colors are pretty consistent, so hopefully I won't need to. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this for fall. It is a bit slow going, but on the other hand, I also was finishing things up, so I haven't spent a ton of time on this one. I actually think I've only been working on this for like a week or maybe 10 days, and not consistently. I've been working on my socks a lot because we've been watching movies and stuff like that. And I do find that I do have to pay attention, even though right now I'm on a part that only has a 2-row repeat, which is fairly memorizable. But every once in a while I mess it up and then I have to, tink back, which annoys me. So then I'm like, put that aside, and I either work on the hat or the socks. Finished objects are done. Whips are done. Let's talk about my vacation and what I got on vacation. So as I mentioned, my husband and I went to Nova Scotia. This was technically our honeymoon trip. We didn't take a big trip directly after our wedding, which will be 2 years ago come September. So we decided to save up, and we came to the conclusion that we wanted to do either the west or east coast of Canada for our vacation. And I ultimately got to make the decision because I have not been to either coast, or I had not been to either coast. My husband has in the past, so he was cool to do whatever I preferred. So I preferred, here's the thing: we basically planned both trips, and then I do want to do both trips eventually, but my preference was to start by going east. So we did that. And so we decided to go to Nova Scotia, and we decided to split our time between Sydney, Cape Breton area and Halifax, Nova Scotia area, because our plan was to fly out, rent a car, and we would do day trips around the area that we were staying in every day, so that we could always come back to a home base. We didn't have to find somewhere to stay each night. We just decided day trips would be a great way to see the area that we were in. So, of course, the Tracy's Unrolling Yarn Shop was the first yarn stop of the trip. I never did explain this well. Tracy's Unrolling Yarn Shop is the brick and mortar location of Tracy's Rolling Yarn Shop, which is a very cool yarn truck, basically. Tracy has this trailer full of yarn, and she travels around Nova Scotia and area, and sells her yarn via trailer. And I believe the brick and mortar is relatively new, but that is the only location we got to. We did find the rolling yarn shop trailer on the boardwalk in Sydney, but it wasn't open when we found it, which was fantastic on our first day in Sydney. So I got the fleece artist yarn that I showed you, and I'm gonna apologize in the advance for crinkling. I'll cut it out if I have to. And I also got, it's in Ziplocs because that's how I brought it home from the trip, so that nothing terrible happened to it on the carry-on. I also got this beautiful skein by Wool and Wonderlust, and this is called Cape Breton Cruisin'. So this is my Cape Breton yarn, basically, and it's just, it definitely has all the colors of the water that we were driving by. Absolutely gorgeous. Don't know what I'm gonna make with it, but it's beautiful and like so soft. This is 85 superwash merino and 15% nylon, and it's about just over 400 yards. So yeah, fairly locally dyed, from what they told me at the yarn shop, and I was like, perfect, that's what I want. Give me that. So that was kind of it for most of the Sydney trip, and then on our last day in Sydney, my husband and I went out for breakfast. Packed the car, went for breakfast, and then we decided to do a little, like, sort of one more walk around downtown Sydney, and we went into oh gosh, I forget what it was called, but it was something along the lines of Sydney Craft Collective or something similar. Anyway, it was this gorgeous space that had all sorts of locally made artisan stuff in it, like everything you could imagine, from pottery to jewelry to lots of textile art, things like that. So I got this cute little yarn kit that came in this bag, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a sheep on that bag. It feels like one of those Magic Eye books. Like it's one of those images. It's like, squint your eyes and find the sheep. So I thought this was super cute. This is hand dyed yarn by someone named Carrie Fell, who's a local Cape Breton dyer. And inside the cute little bag is this sock set. So this is what I called the surprise yarn, because I did not, like, we went in there and I did not expect to find yarn. I expected to find textile art, but not yarn. So yeah, very cute big skein with little blue mini skein. Very generous though. Yeah, altogether it looks like we're looking at a full skein of the variegated and a 50-gram mini skein. Yeah, and it doesn't have a colorway name. It just says sock set, but it's so pretty. So pretty. I feel like this is shawl material. Don't know if that's what's going to end up happening, but for now it's souvenir yarn in a souvenir bag. Oh gosh. There we go. And then that was kind of it for Sydney, because I was being very good. Oh, I'll pop up a picture, because I also bought needle stoppers. They're not here because they're in use. I bought needle stoppers and a really cute progress keeper, both of which are lobsters, at Tracy's Unrolling Yarn Shop. So I'll pop a picture up of those. So I bought accessories as well. So then after Sydney, a few days in Sydney, we drove back down to Halifax, and we spent the rest of our vacation in Halifax and the surrounding area. So sort of mid that part of the trip, we went to downtown Halifax, and we visited the Loop, in downtown Halifax, and I got some stuff. So thing number one that I got was a beautiful, because I spin now, I got a beautiful handmade spindle from Moose Hill. Yes, Moose Hill Woodworks. I believe this person is not local to the Maritimes or Nova Scotia, but they are Canadian. And I was just like, yep, we're doing that. We're getting another handcrafted. We are getting a handcrafted spindle, because all of my spindles right now are commercial, which is fine. They work great. And apparently this is made of something called ambrosia maple, which is absolutely gorgeous. Top whirl, because that's what I am used to. Can't wait to spin with this. And to go along with it, Loop had this really cool, I'll call it way to order, fiber shelf. So they had this whole shelf bookcase of Corriedale fiber that you could weigh out, and they charged you per 10 grams. So you could get them to weigh out however much you wanted. And then you just paid per gram, which I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing. So the first one I saw that I really fell in love with, and I also thought Corriedale is something I have not spun with at all and is not available to me locally. So this was the first one that I gravitated towards, because I'm like, it would be very cool to do a natural colored spin. Then of course I'm looking, they had gorgeous natural shades, white, this sort of browny gray, all the way to black. And then I was looking, because of course there's dyed fiber as well. Look at it. Swamp Witch Green strikes again. So I am thinking that I might ply these together. We're gonna see. But I'm very, very excited to start spinning both of these. I'm very excited to have the experience of spinning Corriedale, because it feels a lot like the Rambouillet. So I feel like it will draft much easier, not as slippery as the Merino, for sure. And the lovely salesperson who was there at Loop that day, who was having such a day with the technology in the store, and I really felt for her, but she did a great job, and it all turned out fine. But yeah, bless that person for problem solving in the moment. Yeah, so she said that the Corriedale is nice and grippy, which I was like, great, that will be very helpful, because I'm still a beginner spinner, right? I don't have enough experience with number of spins or different fibers to know that. The other thing I bought at Loop was this green skein of worsted weight tweed yarn from Lockbriar Knits, who is another hand dyer local to Cape Breton, if not just the Maritimes or Nova Scotia in general. But this is 85% superwash blue-faced Leicester, and of course 15% Donegal Nep for the tweed. And I am absolutely knitting a cabled hat out of this. Green is not like, it's definitely one of my colors that I gravitate towards, but like not for accessories. But I think that'll be really cute. What do we think? Yeah, so I thought, lovely, lovely. Gonna do that. That's nice and easy. And that was it for the Loop, Halifax proper. And then one of the last days that we were in the Halifax area, we drove out to oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name of the area. East Passage. I'll correct myself on screen if I'm wrong, but we visited the violet unicorn, and it was so cute. I'll pop a picture up. It was a part of this boardwalk area, and there were different businesses in these little like fishing huts, and it was like the cutest thing we had ever seen, and we were like, this is amazing, right? Because I had no concept of where this was. I just Googled yarn shops, and we had to drive over the bridge towards Dartmouth to visit this, which was very cool. I don't like bridges, but my husband was very thrilled to drive over this bridge, and I just grit my teeth and made it through. So at the Violet Unicorn, I bought this skein of sock weight from Waxing Moon Fibres. The colorway is called How Soon Is Now, and it's hand dyed in Nova Scotia, Canada. Again, 436 yards, superwash merino, and 75 25 superwash merino and nylon. And I just thought, how gorgeous. And I had no idea what I was going to knit with this, but I was like, you know what? Purple, we can never go wrong with purple. We love purple in this household. And then, of course, I'm walking around this shop, which had so much in it for how small it was. And then, sorry. Then I came across these kits, and she had this sample, and you probably can't see it. Oh, that's not bad. It's a little shiny, but it's not bad. She had this sample up on a mannequin, and it's called the Hold On Tight Scarf with Clasp Kit. And she was like, kits available and whatever, and there were kits right there. So I was like, I like a kit, and especially because it comes with an accessory. So I grabbed this kit because it was mostly because it had the clasp that I wanted, because this was not the clasp that was on the sample. She didn't have any kits with the clasp that was on the sample, and I'll maybe pop a picture up of the sample if I still have it. But I really, really liked this clasp. It seems like very, elvish, Lord of the Rings, woodland, whatever. So, and it came with these two colors, and by the looks of the sample and the pattern photo, you just single stripe this shawl and then you clasp the ends of it. Maybe if I can find a picture online, I'll pop it up. If not, take my word for it. It was very cool. But I was thinking that these don't vibe for me quite. They're beautiful, and I will use them for something eventually, but I'm not sure that I want to use them for this pattern, because of course it comes with the pattern. So I thought, depending on the yardage that's called for in that pattern, because I haven't opened it up yet, maybe this. I'll just knit it in this rather than striping, and just with the color variation in it, it might look really, really cool. And then put the clasp on that, and that's very witchy, and I'm very into that. So yeah, that sounds exciting to me. And that is it. That is everything that I bought on vacation. Those are the yarns I grabbed on vacation. We had a fantastic time. If you're contemplating going to the East Coast of Canada, please do it. Please do it. It is gorgeous. If you're a water person, it's fantastic. You get to drive by the coast nearly everywhere, especially if you make Google choose the route to be closest to the water. The little communities that we drove through were amazing. If you like a lighthouse, the East Coast of Canada is your place. We found out that we love lighthouses. Mostly we love the view from where lighthouses are. It was fantastic. I won't take up too much else of your time talking about my vacation, but know that we had a fantastic time, and I am already fully committed to planning a trip back to see other parts of the East Coast. New Brunswick, PEI, Newfoundland. Newfoundland will probably be just a whole thing just on its own, because you have to drive everywhere and it takes forever. But that sounds like a wonderful thing to do. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to everyone who's subscribing, commenting, liking the video. I really appreciate it. The channel is still growing slowly. I'm grateful for everybody who's here. All that being said, I hope that wherever you are feeling safe and you are feeling cozy. And until my next video, bye.